my karma to be, in this lifetime, to be an artist. I developed, some basic jazz skills. I would imagine you'd say that. One could say that when I was in the state of Washington in my college years, and I was hungry for more, so it was either move to L.A. or move to New York. I chose to go to New York, but what's interesting is that everything that all my jazz training prior to moving to New York needed to be thrown out the window when I got there because they weren't playing that way. At that particular time, which was the autumn of 1965, bebop, which is what I wanted to play, was not in favor so much as what was called free jazz. And also there was this strange phenomenon called the Beatles that had reared its head and was spreading into every area of culture, not just in pop music, but in every area of culture. There was a spirit of do your own thing, and it permeated every aspect of life. During his more controversial behavior, just heard stories like everybody else, and everybody else has a story. Charles Mingus I knew was near the end of his life, and he was at peace with himself. He knew what he wanted to do. He was a consummate gentleman, wonderful human being, and a great soul, and very supportive and very encouraging. And the last thing he said, "I love you." He said, "Larry, I love you." He was sitting in his wheelchair because, we musicians constantly need to pay respects to those who have the real essence of the music in them, and it was like getting guidance from a great teacher. I'm not concerned about it because I'm more interested in melodies anyway. I just had a long session with my original jazz teacher. He lives way out in the Pacific Northwest, and I go to him kind of like a disciple goes to see a mentor every few years. And, I said, I want to change the way I play. And he said, okay, you're going to have to be prepared to not like what you're going to be taking a risk. But I said, what do I do? And he started talking to me about intervals and interval shapes. And it's great. You got to have a coach. That's my, you got to have a coach. I think we need that, to the very end, because the true coach, the coach with the correct spirit really wants the disciple to surpass him anyway. I'm extremely critical of myself. I don't think I'll ever reach a point, with rare exceptions, where I'll be able to say, well, this is, unassailable, because I'm never really happy with what I do. I'm just trying to strive for progress. Music is actually ideally a form of perfection, but I think because I'm a common mortal, I can only try for progress. Well, I've gone off on a tangent, recording-wise. I decided after reading Miles's autobiography, when he talked about not making the kind of records that only musicians would be interested, I said, well, I better try that, because I'd like to reach a wider audience. So I started with CTI Records, which is owned and produced by Creed Taylor, and I just kind of let him run the show. And I, decided to take direction from him. And the first record was a Brazilian record. The second one was kind of a digital pop jazz thing, and the third one is more of an R&B urban type pop urban crossover with Peabo Bryson singing and Grover Washington playing saxophone on some tracks and Donald Harrison playing saxophone, and produced by a young guitarist who's doing quite well himself. His name is Chuck Loeb. Produced a lot of tracks, and it's really a big departure for me. It's just mostly melodies and not a whole lot of bebop in there, none actually. But it's the whole target is to be able to reach a wider audience, so that I can, after a couple of strong, records, I can go in front of a larger audience and play anything I want. Just for me, and it's really something that life itself has done more than something I've thought about. Learn the tradition, respect it, but advance it as well. At the end of my life, if I can look back and perhaps be able to see documentary proof that I've advanced the art form, then I think I will have achieved my mission. If there were two guitar players that I would like to play with the most in a trio situation, I think it would be Borelli and Philip, because I have a long history with both of them, a very positive history. And they're friends as well as respected colleagues. This is Borelli. Borelli, where you been? Hey, Borelli. Yeah, right? Where you been?
I started when I was a kid. I was about 4 years old. My father taught me, a little bit. And, well, actually, everything went so fast, that I didn't have really time to realize. I was thrown out there, when I was about 12 or 13. So I started playing concerts, at that very young age. I didn't personally have that chance to grow up like a typical gypsy, because my parents, they moved into a house and they didn't really follow the tradition, than other gypsies would do. So, I hope I can learn a little bit more about it, So, but, from what I've seen, anyway, in any case, that's the tradition is still very strong, which is great. Because, all we ask about is music, and that's like our main thing.
I played guitar from, let's say, 56. And it's only in 71 that I decided to only do music. Because before that, I was working with professional musicians while I was at school or college. And I was I was already making tours. I mean, the first album I recorded was in 61, but I was still at school. So it's only after, I don't know how many years, 15 years, that when Jean-Luc Ponty asked me to join his group, but I said, well, maybe that's what I should do, and I didn't do anything else since.
Yes. C.
had any teacher. I never took lessons. I can't read music even now. I never learned. But it's not a handicap for me. Well, maybe it would be when I would do a lot of record sessions. Then of course that would be a little bit more tougher. But since I play, I always played with my own bands, and so I don't really need to read that much. And when I get together with other musicians to play with them on stage, so we get together before a little bit, and all I do is picking that stuff up by ear, as best as I can, as best as I can do.
There's periods where I practice more technically. There's periods where I try more to study from, because I practice also by studying things. For instance, I nearly didn't. I listened to, for instance, we were mentioning Chet Baker recently. I've been studying a lot of and recopying some of his solos, and I try to see what's beautiful in it, and then it gives me inspiration to do other things. But that's also a practice for me, because I'm learning from other people some beauty, which I try to use in my own way.
Right on.
The chord.
On the cadence?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 1, let it go.
Well, Jaco, for me, he was, again, a monster. He was a perfect composer, perfect arranger, musician, and I was a lot influenced by his music, and also the group that he was part of it, which was called Weather Report. Excuse me, Weather Report, that group, and so I got into that a lot. And then finally I ended up playing with him, which for me was, I couldn't believe it. So we did 2 tours through Europe, and I learned a lot, I really learned a lot about his music, and to see the person finally, next to me on stage. That was one of the greatest things that could ever happen to me.
I worked a whole year with Chet, and it's something unforgettable for me. Every moment on stage was so important. I knew when I was going on stage with Chet that something important would happen. I don't know if he created the tension or it's because, but there was a big. I always felt that something, that you never knew what's going to happen. And it's funny because I never knew what was going to happen, and at the same time it was most of the time happening very, very well every time. But the impression of danger before starting and after, a lot of joy.
I just did a new record, which will probably be out for the fall probably. It's a record, which that I dedicated to Django Reinhardt's music, And the whole record is holds Django Reinhardt's compositions. And but I turned it a little bit around. It sounds more modern than most people would think. You know, I add some synthesizers in it. You know, very heavy drums, and the whole thing sounds a little fusion-y almost. You know, like almost. But it'll be a great record once it'll be out. You know, I can't actually wait to hear it on CD.
I got few different projects which I want to do, and I don't really know in which order, but I know one of them is a trio with a Belgian trumpet player, Bert Joris, and I'm going to make also one of these days soon. I'm working on it, a record with a little bit in the spirit of the record guitars I made 20 years ago, which I think I've been speaking about that with Toots Tielemans, with who we phone a lot on the phone, you know, and I go and see him often, and he always tells me,